What is going on, guys? Welcome back to another video. And if you've been following the page for a while, you know that I like to get your guys' takes on what is going on in the NHL, especially in the form of hot takes. We did one after like the first couple days of the season. We did one after 2 weeks. And now we're going to do one after like 6 weeks. We actually have a pretty solid sample size at this point of the NHL season. We're like a fifth. Some teams are even like a fourth. I think the New Jersey Devils have played 20 or 21 games at this point. So I'm going to go through 15 of your hot takes, and I'm going to tell you whether I think that you're absolutely out to lunch or if you're somewhat reasonable with these takes. These are going to be decently hot, and without further ado, let's get into it. And up first, we have something about the Jets. After their hot start going 15-2, Nikki says the Jets don't win the Central Division. And yeah, I think the Jets are definitely the favorite right now to win the Central Division, considering they have had such a great start. But I don't think that this is that hot of a take when you consider the Dallas Stars are still playing very good. The Minnesota Wild have got off to a great start. With the Winnipeg Jets, their underlying numbers of 5-on-5 haven't been that good, but their special teams have been magnificent. Do I think they're going to continue to be as good as they are? No, they're looking at like a 38% on the power play, but I think they could be top 5 the rest of the way. And of course, they have Connor Hellebuyck. That maybe a 934 isn't sustainable for the rest of the way, but I think he could give you 925 to maybe even 930 goaltending the rest of the way. So I still would pick the Jets to do it, but I agree. They probably only have like a 55% chance at winning the Central Division right now. There are still major contenders in the Stars, in the Wild. Even the Colorado Avalanche I could see go on an absolute tear and end up winning the Central Division. They are not running away with it because it's not like they've been as dominant at 5-on-5. It's been more so special teams reliant. I could see it end up happening. Next up, we got something from Kevin. McAvoy, not a top 5 defenseman, and might even be out of the top 10 by next season. And me personally, I had him, I believe, number 6 behind Yossi, Heiskanen, then the clear top 3 of Makar, Fox, and Hughes. But when looking at it, yeah, I think McAvoy's stock is definitely down over the last year and a half. Last year, he wasn't even that good defensively. Offensively, he was okay, like 60-ish point pace. But this season, very unfortunate start. He only has 7 points in 19 games right now. And the underlying 5-on-5 numbers are kind of pedestrian right now. So yeah, I think McAvoy, when looking at other guys like Rasmus Dahlin, Josh Morrissey having great seasons, when I do my updated top 50 players in the NHL, I think those guys might be ahead of Charlie McAvoy, who for a while was a staple as a top 4 through 6 defenseman basically ever since 2022. Charlie McAvoy is definitely slipping in the rankings. Still a very good player, but again, to start this season, he hasn't been close to a top 10 defenseman, so you got to factor that in. Scott says, if the Leafs sucked for one more season, the Matthews era would have a cup. And I get what you're saying here, especially when you consider the fact, what is this Leafs core maybe missing? It's missing the legit number 1 defenseman. If they sucked during the 2017 season, you could have got Miro Heiskanen or Cale Makar, but I do think that is kind of severe revisionist history when looking at it, considering the fact that that 2017 season was still very magical for the Toronto Maple Leafs. Yes, maybe ideally you would have wanted to stink that season, but in the moment, nobody was like, we need one more year of sucking, because they did suck from 2014 to 2016. And in that 2017 season, it looked like they were turning into this future dynasty when looking at guys like Matthews having 40 goals, Marner and Nylander also going above 60 points. So I get what you mean to a degree, but I still don't think the Toronto Maple Leafs rushed their rebuild by any stretch. And yeah, that 2017 season was so promising. I don't think in order for them to have sucked that year, those players wouldn't have been amazing out of the gate, and God knows what happens after that. I disagree with that they needed one more year of sucking, although, again, if they got Heiskanen and Makar, yeah, they probably would have been a better spot. That's revisionist history right there. Wolf, this comes to us from Elias. Wolf has been the best rookie by a landslide, but nobody wants to talk about it. And I agree. Dustin Wolf has been great. You could argue he's been the best goalie right now. Would I say it's best rookie right now? Would I argue it's a landslide? No. He has a 6-2-1 record with a 921 save percentage, which is amazing. If he keeps that up for the rest of the year, he's probably going to win the Calder. But you also have Matvei Michkov clicking at like a near a point per game route, as well as Logan Stankoven. This isn't a landslide by any stretch. You have 2 other guys that might end up between 70 to 80 points. So yeah, if the rest of the season plays out and Dustin Wolf has 920 in 45 games, yeah, he's probably going to win the Calder Trophy, especially considering the fact he's doing it on Calgary, that in my opinion still isn't that good of a team. But I disagree with the premise that it's been a landslide. If the season ended today, I might arguably give it to Dustin Wolf. Next up from Bryce, Oetkin gets 900 this season, wins the cup, and gets the Rocket. When looking at Alexander Ovechkin right now, in order for Alexander Ovechkin to finish with 900 goals this season, he's going to need 34 in the next 65 games. And consider the fact that he already has 13 and 17, he's on pace for that. So I can definitely see 900 goals. I think at this point, it's a coin flip that he breaks the record this season. Honestly, I'd probably lean towards him breaking it right now because although, yes, he has 13 goals in 17 games, which is insane, it's not like he's shooting 28, 29% when we talk about major regression candidates. He's shooting 21.7%. He's on pace for 63 goals, only shooting 21.7, which again is still an insanely high rate. He's not going to continue that for the rest of the season. But if he just has an above average good shooting year of shooting 17 to 18%. We're talking about a guy that could legitimately hit 50 goals this season. Last year, even, he finished with 23 goals in his final 36 games, which was on 52 goal pace. Again, last year's fall off was only because the first 25, 35 games of the season, he kind of forgot how to score goals. But yeah, I think Alexander Ovechkin, in terms of 900 goals, I could definitely see that happening. That's a borderline coin flip right now, 47 goals to finish the season. In terms of him winning the Rocket Richard, it's still somewhat possible, as crazy as that is to say. Is he the favorite right now? Would I say it's like a 10% chance to happen? Most definitely. But considering the guy that was the consensus favorite coming into the season, Austin Matthews, didn't have a great start, and now he's hurt. Might not even play tonight or tomorrow whenever they play as well. He's still hurt. It's kind of up for grabs. I would definitely pick Kaprizov. I would definitely pick Kucherov ahead of an Alexander Ovechkin at this point. But it's looking like the Rocket winner this season might only need 55 goals. You might not need 69 like Matthews last year, or 63 or 64, whatever Connor McDavid had in 2023. It might be a lower goal scoring year in terms of, some guys are having great starts, but in terms of the overall raw totals, I don't know if anybody hit 60 this year. So it's definitely possible. I'm not going to talk about the cup part right now for the Washington Capitals. They're playing great, but are they a top tier cup contender right now? I'm not so sure. But yeah, Ovechkin getting to 900 this season, I'd say there's like a 45% chance. And then him winning the Rocket Richard, I'd say it's like a 10% chance. It's not completely out of the picture. Next up, we got this from Jay Del Vanthol. He says, Bratt is a top 25 player in the league, and he's playing great right now, 24 points in 21 games. I can't quite go with the top 25 player in the league. I think last time I did my rankings, he was like 45th or 46th, and he's definitely in store to get a bump. He is just such a dynamic skater and such an amazing player in transition, one of the best transition players in the entire NHL. Top 25, that's rarefied air. You can basically carry an entire offense on your back if you're a forward. I can't quite go there with Jesper Bratt. He's great, top 25. He might be knocking on top 35, but top 25, I can't quite go there. We're sticking it in the New York metro area. Sean Irwin says, Laviolette is not a great head coach, and will be fired next year. And when looking at Laviolette, yeah, he has sky-high expectations, and he was a big-time upgrade over Gerard Gallant. But when looking at it, the 5-on-5 numbers are a little bit concerning for the New York Rangers. If he can't unlock Zibanejad and Kreider at 5-on-5, this team is most likely not going anywhere in the playoffs, especially when you look at how dominant Carolina has been to start this season. So yeah, I wouldn't be shocked if Laviolette is fired. If you're saying at the end of next season, yeah, if he doesn't make it back to an Eastern Conference Finals in the next 2 years, he's going to get fired. I think he's a good coach. Don't get me wrong. But yeah, there's just a lot of pressure on the New York Rangers, and firing Laviolette is a lot more practical than trading him Mika Zibanejad given his contract. Not saying it's some like horrible contract, but obviously firing the coach is a lot easier of a fix than making massive sweeping changes if you're the general manager. So yeah, I could definitely see it happen. He's a good coach, but there's a lot of pressure and expectations, rightfully so, on the New York Rangers. And if the results don't follow, he might be the guy that gets fired, that gets removed. Next up, we got this from Mathis Vazzi. Got the numbers replacing the letters. But Preds will replicate what St. Louis Blues did in 2019 and win the Stanley Cup. We got to stop with that. That's genuinely a once-in-a-lifetime event, what happened with the St. Louis Blues. That is nuts. They got a random and Jordan Binnington come out of nowhere and just completely save their season. Right now, they're 6-10-3. I made a video on it. I think the 8 Western Conference playoff spots are kind of locked up at this point. I don't think that's ridiculous. It's every team that made it last year, and the Minnesota Wild. The 2 teams that are in wild card spots right now, or besides Calgary would be in wild card spots, are Edmonton and Colorado. Those are the 2 teams that have not had good starts. They're going to continue to click. I think Nashville's on the outside looking in. Could they make the playoffs? Maybe. But in terms of winning a Stanley Cup, I personally don't see it at this point. Call me crazy. Next up, if Dallas doesn't win a cup within the next 4 years, they're a failure. I can't quite go there just because Dallas It would be definitely very disappointing, but I think Dallas in years 5 through 7 could also contend at a high level, considering we're seeing a guy like Logan Stankoven proving to be an eventual very elite player. They're still very young, and they still have some pretty horrible contracts on the books with Jamie Benn this year, and Sagan still has 2 years left after this. They're not in cap hell by any stretch, but they are such a young team. Most of their core players are, under the age of 26, 27 at this point. So we got to pump the brakes on that. That would be very disappointing if they don't win a cup, especially if they don't make a cup final over the next 4 seasons. They have cup expectations, but this isn't a team that is all. It's not like the New York Rangers, which we were just talking about. The next 4 years is probably their window, given Panarin, given Zibanejad, even Shesterkin's 28, 29 years old. Dallas, they still have a very long time horizon, similarly to a Carolina Hurricanes, where I'm not going to massively panic if they don't win shit the next 3 to 4 years. Kyle Connor is a top 5 winger and goal scorer from Joe Halleck 15. Let's first go top 5 goal scoring winger. I think I would agree with, basically since he broke out in 2019-2020 season, he's been putting up around 41, 42 point pace. And although Mark Scheifele is a good player, he doesn't have that star center that some other of these top goal scoring wingers have. So top 5 goal scoring winger, I think I would agree with you on that point. Top 5 overall winger, I don't think we can go with that with Kyle Connor, especially given his defensive limitations or him just not really caring about defense. But I think just right off the bat, Pasta, Kucherov, Rantanen, Tkachuk, Panarin, Kaprizov. That's 6. That's not really a debate at all for Kyle Connor. He's great. He's going to be in my probably top 30 players when I update it. But those are all top 15 guys that, again, can just absolutely drive an offense to 100 plus point, or he can generate 100 plus points. Kyle Connor's in that next tier. I don't think that's disrespectful to say at this point that he's in that 7 through 13, whatever that next tier is. That's where Kyle Connor stands. I don't think I'm being a Jets hater by saying that. Next up, Bisada 36. Jonathan Quick should be on 4 Nations. Could threaten the starter job. When looking at this, he's been amazing to start the season. I'm not trying to discredit him, even though I'm going to discredit him a little bit right here. He has a 970 in 4 starts right now. Those starts are against, and his underlying numbers are also very good, don't get me wrong, but those 4 starts are against Detroit twice, Anaheim, and Seattle. It's not exactly world beaters, and he's getting 10 days of rest in between starts. He's very fresh. So I could see him as a 3rd goalie just because Swayman's been a little bit disappointing this season. Demko, we don't know if he's going to be healthy. I could make an argument for a 3rd veteran goalie in the same way Marc-Andre Fleury could potentially get picked for Canada, even though he's not playing nearly as good as Quick. But just as that veteran that's been there, can maybe impart some wisdom on the younger guys, even though Connor Hellebuyck's still 31. But I think right now it's very clearly Hellebuyck as a starter. He's playing out of his mind. Yes, maybe not the most proven playoff performer, but Jonathan Quick hasn't been a playoff performer for a while. But also, Jake Ottinger has kind of proved that he's the backup right now, considering he's been very good for the Dallas Stars and has had very good playoff moments in the past. I wouldn't hate a 3rd goalie spot for Jonathan Quick as that veteran, well-respected. But in terms of passing those guys, I think that's a little bit absurd given the fact it's only been 4 games, and again, not against the highest quality of competition. He's playing great, but let's be a little bit realistic. Next up, this comes to us from Clay. Don't know if it's hot, but Martin Necas finished top 5 in Hart voting. Clay, that is a very hot take when looking at Martin Necas. 30 points in 17 games. Right now, if the season ended, he'd be top 5 in Hart voting. Do I think what he's doing is that sustainable? No, he's on pace for 140 points. I don't think. I'd still be very surprised if he finishes above 95 points. I'll put it like that. I'll be very, very surprised. Even with this start, he just has to be, point per game the rest of the way to finish with 95 points, considering he's 13 points above point per game right now. I'd be very shocked. It looks like he is taking big steps in his game, but if we're talking about him at the end of the season, do I think he's going to have a better year than Connor McDavid, Nathan MacKinnon, Nikita Kucherov, Kirill Kaprizov, Connor Hellebuyck, even if Austin Matthews misses a couple games, Artemi Panarin's playing great. Top 5 for the Hart voting. That's usually only top 15, top 20 players in the entire NHL finish top 5 in Hart voting. I can't quite go that far with Martin Necas, although I said after he had 13 or 23 points in 13 games, I said he's going to slow down, and he's still producing at a high level. I predict him to finish with like 90 points right now, which again would be an amazing season for him, and especially relative to his contract. Next up, we got this from Mason Jeffkins. He says Heiskanen was never a top 5 defenseman, more so in the 8 to 9 range. I think this is recency biased. I'm not going to lie. I will not stand for Miro Heiskanen slander, although he has been very disappointing in his first 16 games. Only has 6 points in those games. His defensive numbers are actually kind of bad relative to even league average right now. Dallas, some of their stars just aren't really rising to the occasion. Some of their stars aren't really rising, the stars on the stars. But when looking at Miro Heiskanen, the track record that this guy had the prior 2 seasons, he deserved the spot as a top 5 defenseman in the NHL. I had him at number 4 behind the big 3. But when looking at him last year, he still had 54 points in 71 games, which is 62-point pace. Still very good there, as well as the fact that he was ranked 4th in the entire NHL at expected goals against per 60 among the 140 defensemen that had at least 1,000 5-on-5 minutes. Again, and he's playing the toughest minutes. He's playing 25, 26 minutes a night. He only allowed 2.07 expected goals per 60, only behind Brian Dumoulin, who was surprisingly that high, and the Carolina Hurricanes' third pair of Chatfield and Orlov, who just absolutely torched people as their third pair last season. He's still elite. And again, the prior season in 2023, he had 73 points. And he's playoff proven. He has risen to the occasion. 2020 was one of the best playoff runs of recent memory by a defenseman. To say right now he's not a top 5 defenseman. Do not get me wrong. He's not even top 10, similar to Charlie McAvoy. He needs to play better. But the prior 2 seasons was definitely a bona fide top 5 defenseman, top 6 for sure. We need to calm the brakes. If he continues this, I'd agree. But objectively, 2023, 2024, that 2-year run, no doubt top 5 guy in my opinion. No doubt. Next up, we got this from Claude Machine. He says Utah has an uber hot month and a half and sneak into the dance. I can maybe see once they get their defenseman back, and John Marino and Sean Durzi, that they go on a little bit of a run. They need to stay around 53, 54% points percentage for the next couple months in order to have that happen. I personally don't see it happening. Again, talking about the Nashville Predators, I think the 8 teams in the Western Conference are kind of locked up. Maybe it's possible because we saw them start off so good. Maybe they could have a good closing, but I'd say, this might sound ridiculous, I say like an 8 to 10% chance that Utah makes the playoffs at this point. I think the West is looking like that much of a lock at this point. And then lastly, we got this from Awesome Austin 29. Mikko Rantanen will not stay with the Avalanche at the end of the season. I think this will come down to Mikko Rantanen. If he wants to stay, I think they'll get something done. You could argue Colorado would be better spreading his $12.5 million to a $6 to $7 million goalie and a winger to replace Mikko Rantanen. You can make that argument. But again, what is out there in terms of goaltenders? So I think Colorado's going to do everything in their power to re-sign him. I think Mikko wants to stay, playing with Nathan McKinnon, playing with Cale Makar. You already won a cup there. You're already a legend there. You get that 8th year on top of your deal. I think he's going to stay. It is maybe a little bit weird that they haven't signed him yet, considering like you didn't expect a Mitch Marner to sign that early on, but you're seeing guys like Draisaitl, Crosby all get locked up, while Rantanen you assumed was kind of going to be a done deal. But yeah, I'd still put my confidence meter at Rantanen staying at Colorado Avalanche at like 95%. I'm not too worried. But let me know in the comments, what do you think about these hot takes? God damn, we went for a long time. Thank you guys all for submitting it. Feel free. It's on my Instagram and Beyond Hockey. Whenever I do these, want to hear from you guys. I'll be seeing you in the next one.